Welcome, everyone. As you can see, we're at my humble abode. Thank you. Today, I want to invite everybody into my brain with some ideas for everybody. Whether you're a teacher, an administrator, a parent, a colleague, a friend, anybody who feels passionately about the education of the world's children. Today, I want to talk about collective efficacy and a small challenge that the schools in my community have at nurturing that collective efficacy. First of all, what is collective efficacy? Whew, now that I got your attention and it's all heated up, I'm going to have to take this jacket off. So, collective efficacy means the belief in the success of a whole group or an entire social system. Now, particularly today, I'm talking about the belief of the success in a school system. Being as I am a student right now studying my master's in education. Wow, amazing, right? Not engineering, not rocket science, education. I'm a master's in education, and I am also a paraprofessional at a school. Not just a regular paraprofessional, but a SPED paraprofessional. That means special education, which we'll get to later. So, collective efficacy. It means the belief in the success of an entire group. Now, how do you make that better? Well, some schools would make that better by having meetings between the administrators and the teachers. Open communication lines between teachers, parents, and administrators. Teachers challenging their students, managing their behavior, building an environment where they can learn unhindered from negative attitudes. Teachers smiling at each other in the hallway. Students feeling like they can be educated, feeling like they're comfortable. How do we do that? Well, there's lots of different ideas that schools use. One of these ideas is when you are not around someone and you are talking about them, how should you talk about them? Well, if it's negative towards them, or if it's a negative thing they did, maybe you shouldn't be talking about it. When someone isn't around and you're talking to someone else about them, if you feel the need or the feeling that you are not saying something positive about them, then you should probably stop talking about them and change the topic. You might run into this in the lounge or around school where you see other teachers doing this. Okay, there's simple ways to avoid it. But that is not the issue at hand today. The issue at hand is a small challenge for schools in the district to help out paraprofessionals, more specifically SPED paraprofessionals like myself, feel more equipped to help all the children in the school. Now, I truly believe that any adult, support staff, teacher, administrator, should be able to help any student with a simple task of anything in the hallway in a classroom. That is my philosophy. If you're an adult working with children at a school, you should not feel that you cannot help someone. You should not have this thought in your brain that if you help this child, someone might be angry at you and say, that's not your job. I do not believe in that. Now, I'm going to give you a few scenarios. Let's say that a special ed paraprofessional is helping out a SPED para in class. But that particular student is not having trouble with this particular assignment. Maybe that para walks up and helps another student that is not SPED. Well, if that school is being audited by a federal employee, and they go and ask these teachers, what does a SPED para do in your room? And they find out that 20 to 30% of the time, I don't know how you measure that, they are not helping SPED kids, they are helping regular ed kids. Then they will try and pull funding from the federal government to each district for their SPED paras. Now let me get into that. A SPED para gets paid their salary. Let's just say it's $30,000 a year, because that's easy, even though it's not that much. Now, the district pays the $30,000, but 2 years later, the federal government will pay 2/3 of that back to the district for all of their employees that are special ed paraprofessionals. A non-SPED paraprofessional, which could be someone that is support staff in the school helping out at recess, or an ELL, that means English language learners, they are paid for by the district, which is funded by the state. Now, if a federal auditor comes to a school and finds out that this SPED para is not working all their time 100% with SPED children, they could decide to pull the federal funding for SPED paras. And that would be disastrous for many districts because they are counting on that 2-year reimbursement of 2/3 of their salary. So 2/3 of $30,000 would be, if my math is correct, $20,000. Okay? Now, therefore, if you are not working with a SPED kid, you can be punished or reprimanded by a supervisor or a fellow teacher for not working with that student. For example, I'll give you this example. A SPED para works with a student, switches over because that student is working just fine, working with the regular ed student. In the hallway, the supervisor finds that special ed paraprofessional because they walked by the room and saw they were not working with a SPED child and says, "You cannot do that. I do not want you," or not I, the supervisor did not say I, "You just cannot do that. It is against the rules." If they find out that you are not helping SPED kids all the time, they will take away our funding. Okay, I understand that. But the next time this said special ed para is trying to help someone, now they might sit in class and the student that was helped by them before might raise their hand and say, "Hey, Mr. or Mrs., may you help me?" But this time the SPED para says, "No, I don't want to help." No, I'm sorry. They didn't say I don't want to help. They simply just cannot help. Now, if that doesn't lower collective efficacy, then I don't know what else to say about it. When a para is walking around the school and they feel like they can only help a certain amount of kids, and then they see a regular ed student needing their help, and they can't help, that ruins collective efficacy. Because that para, when they see another teacher or another supervisor that has told them specifically you can only work with SPED, there comes an awkward moment. Collective efficacy is down. The school does not believe, or people in the school do not believe, they are at the full capable level of educating all their students. Now, what does that do to the school? Well, that student who had help from the special ed para before, but now doesn't get it, feels maybe like they did something wrong. Maybe that the special ed para doesn't feel good about them this day. Maybe the special ed para doesn't believe in their success, which therefore changes their self-efficacy, the belief that they have the capabilities to succeed. Now, if a student doesn't believe they have the capabilities to succeed, we have a problem. And you might not pinpoint it. I shouldn't use first person. Another employee in the school might not pinpoint it on this specific situation I'm telling you. But I do see a correlation between a special ed paraprofessional not being able to work with regular ed students freely in the collective efficacy of an entire school. Now let me give you another situation, a personal one. Because I'm a special ed para, I was walking down the hallway in between moving from classroom to classroom. Another teacher, a friend of mine, asked me to deal with not a personal problem, but a problem between two kids. They had a disagreement about something. Neither one of them was SPED. I said, sure, I'm not doing anything right now. I have a little time between classes. Let me diffuse this situation. I was seen by a supervisor diffusing the situation. The situation was handled fine. And my supervisor told me that I could not do that because they are not SPED. Now, I do not blame it on my supervisor. My supervisor is only protecting the federal funding that is coming to our school because, let's face it, we need that funding. So this is not anyone's fault inside the school. The next time that teacher asked me to do something with regular ed kids, I said, I can't. I cannot do that. I want to, but I can't. So now we have created a wall between us, the teacher and I. We're still friends, but when I walk down the hall and he needs help with a problem, that teacher cannot ask me unless it's a special ed student. Now, if collective efficacy means the belief in the capabilities for an entire group or social system to succeed, I feel that we all need to be able to help at any given time and not be worried about being audited. Now, I don't want to get into the numbers of it all because that's not the issue here. However, if the state and the federal government could come to an agreement where 1/3 of the 2/3 or 2/3 of the 2/3 that are reimbursed by the federal government could come from state funding and say, written wherever they need to write it in a contract, that 80 or 70% of the time our SPED pairs, we want them dealing with special ed students. But 20 and 30% of the time, it's okay if they're helping other students. Now, what this will solve is in a classroom when the SPED kids are doing just fine and another kid needs help and the teacher's helping another kid and this special ed pair can go over there and assist that child for 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Well, that just changes the whole collective efficacy of the entire school. Because now there are no awkward situations between teacher and para or administrator and para trying to regulate SPED percentage, special ed para percentage of time, which I don't know how you do. And also, it doesn't make administrators and teachers and special ed paras and all of the support staff worry about being audited on servicing a student. Now, like I said before, I personally believe 100% in all adults in a school should be able to help and support and give their services to any student at any point in time. And I challenge, I understand that some might say, oh, well, if they propose cutting federal funding, a district will never let it fly. We'll never go through. We don't want to mess around with money. Okay, well, what are we really messing around with? When it comes to money, to funding, we're messing around with a child's education. Because collective efficacy between teachers, administrators, support staff affects the self-efficacy of a teacher, which therefore affects the self-efficacy of a student. And the bottom line is that a student in any school system should be given the environment where they believe they have the abilities, the capabilities, and the freedom to succeed. Collective efficacy between all adults in the school, to me, is the foundation of the whole school creating an environment of the utmost educational and academic success. Now, can that happen? Will we become 100% achievement gap erased? I don't know. But I challenge administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, friends, people that don't have children, that don't work in school, but they care about their nieces, their nephews, their friends' children. I challenge all of us to think of a way we can propose changing how all adults in a school do not feel hindered by helping all students in that school. And if we don't believe that we can't change that, then why do we care? And if you're finding yourself asking, well, I do care, well, then you need to challenge yourself to figure out a way to change how we can create the highest standard of collective efficacy in a school. Because it starts with us. It starts with the adults that are part of these children's lives. Now, thank you. Whew. Got kind of chilly there, right? Put the jacket back on. And I will leave you all with the simple message of don't give up on our kids. Don't stop believing in your success, in your whole group success, and most importantly, don't stop believing in the success of the children that come through our educational systems. Thank you.